He brought Von's killer on stage. In Atlanta. In the city where King Von took his last breath. In the same state where everything fell apart on November 6, 2020. NBA YoungBoy stood on that stage at State Farm Arena, one of the most packed-out arenas in rap tour history, and brought Lil Tum out. The man who reportedly pulled the trigger that ended King Von's life. Stood right there on stage while YoungBoy performed I Hate YoungBoy, his direct diss at OTF, and the crowd went absolutely insane. And Von's family saw it. O'Block saw it. Chicago saw it. And the question that everybody is asking right now is, was that a coincidence? Was that just a friend showing love to a homie? Or was that YoungBoy sending the loudest, most deliberate, most calculated message he has ever sent to the people who loved King Von? Because this was not the first shot. This was not even the second or third. YoungBoy has been quietly, and sometimes not so quietly, poking at OTF, at Von's memory, at everything that Chicago holds sacred, over and over again. And Von's mom has finally had enough. Now let us go all the way back. Because to understand what YoungBoy is doing right now, to understand why every move he makes gets read by OTF and by Von's family as a deliberate provocation, you need to understand the complete timeline of this beef. Not the surface version. Not the 30-second clip version. The full picture. Because this did not start in Atlanta on November 6, 2020. It started years before that. And understanding where it started is the only way to understand why it still has not ended. The feud spark traces back to 2018 when Von, fresh off a prison bid and signed to Dirk's OTF, began mocking YoungBoy's viral clips on social media. Von called out what he saw as fake toughness in YoungBoy's lyrics, posting videos saying, "The FK YoungBoy talking about on the song, bruh?" It felt playful initially, but the Baton Rouge rapper fired back through subtle bars and posts pulling in his circle. So 2018. That is where this started. Not with a shooting. Not with a body. With Von on Instagram Live questioning whether YoungBoy's music reflected his actual reality. And that specific challenge, coming from a man whose entire artistic identity was built on the premise that everything he rapped about was real, was the match that lit a fire that has been burning ever since. And then came the personal dimensions. Whispers of deeper issues bubbled up. Rumors that Von and Dirk linked with YoungBoy's ops like Florida's Yoshi and Detroit's T Grizzly, plus talk of Von's flirtations with YoungBoy's ex Jania Jackson. So now it was not just about music authenticity. Now it was personal. Now it was about women and ops and the specific kind of disrespect that in this world does not get forgiven easily or forgotten quickly. And then November 6, 2020 arrived. And everything changed. In town for a show, Von spotted Quando Rondo, YoungBoy's close protege and Never Broke Again label signee, and swung first in a heated brawl. Gunfire erupted from Rondo's crew, striking Von fatally at 26. Police reports pinned it on self-defense amid the chaos, but to OTF it was straight murder. Von was gone. And the world mourned. And everybody waited to see what YoungBoy would do. Would he stay quiet? Would he show some sensitivity to the gravity of what had happened? Would he acknowledge that his affiliate's crew had been involved in the death of one of Chicago's most important voices? He did not stay quiet. 2 weeks after King Von's death, Quando Rondo released End of Story, a song that defended Lil Tim's actions, acknowledged the $1 million bounty on his head, and disrespected Von's passing. Laced with YoungBoy's influence, the track poured gas on the fire, drawing Dirk deeper into the fray as Von's mentor and big brother. And that specific choice to release a disrespectful song 2 weeks after Von's death is what permanently closed any door to peace between YoungBoy's world and OTF. Because in the immediate aftermath of a tragedy, there is always a window. A brief moment where things could go either way. Where the grief is still so raw that even people on opposite sides of a situation can pause and acknowledge the human cost of what just happened. YoungBoy's camp used that window to drop a diss. To celebrate. To pour gasoline on a community that was already burning. And Chicago has never forgotten that. And Von's family has never forgotten that. And everything that has happened since, every diss track, every social media shot, every concert controversy, exists in the specific context of that original decision to celebrate instead of acknowledge. YoungBoy's involvement ramped up hard after his 2021 release. On his Colors mixtape, he unleashed Bring the Hook spitting lines like O'Block Pack Get Rolled Up and Atlanta Boy Get Folded, direct shots at O'Block and the circumstances of Von's killing. O'Block Pack Get Rolled Up. He actually said that. About the community that was still grieving. About the people who had just buried one of their most important members. And then came the full diss, YoungBoy's I Hate YoungBoy, a 9-minute barrage naming Durk's fiancée India Royale Von's memory Gucci Mane Lil Baby OTF Nunu and more. He rapped, "Pussy bitch dissing me mad about his dead homie." Mad about his dead homie. He said that about King Von. About somebody's son. About somebody's brother. About the man that Chicago had spent years loving and celebrating and mourning. And he put it in a song and distributed it to millions of people. And Durk hit back. Lil Durk called YoungBoy a bitch and argued that YoungBoy only gets fanfare after a member of his close circle is murdered or passes away, a direct reference to Von's death. And the back and forth escalated. And the community kept getting pulled into it. And every escalation produced more grief, more anger, more division in a community that had already been through more than enough. And through all of it, through every diss track, every social media war, every concert where YoungBoy performed in cities connected to this beef, the shots kept coming. Sometimes loud. Sometimes quiet. But always consistent. Always there. Always reminding OTF and Von's family that YoungBoy had not moved past this and had no intention of moving past it. And now, in 2025 and into 2026, the shots have gotten louder again. More deliberate. More impossible to explain away as coincidence or misinterpretation. And Von's family is done staying silent. Because the Atlanta concert moment is the one that broke everything open again. And it needs to be examined carefully. Precisely. Because the details of what happened at State Farm Arena in October 2025 are not ambiguous. They are not open to interpretation. YoungBoy made a deliberate choice. And that choice, the specific, calculated, impossible to explain as accidental choice, is what has Von's family and O'Block in Chicago in a state of barely contained fury right now. During his packed-out show at State Farm Arena NBA, YoungBoy made a bold statement, bringing Lil Tum on stage with him as he performed I Hate YoungBoy. Lil Tum is a close friend of Quando Rondo and was reportedly the one who shot King Von the night he died. According to Complex, the charges were eventually dropped as they believe the shooting may have been in self-defense to protect himself and Quando. Let us be completely clear about who Lil Tum is. This is not some random friend. This is not somebody who happened to be in the area that night and got caught up in something that had nothing to do with him. Lil Tum is the man who reportedly fired the shots that ended King Von's life. The man who was charged with felony murder and then watched those charges get dropped. The man whose freedom, whose ability to walk around, to live his life, to appear on stages at sold-out arena concerts, is the specific outcome that Von's family has had to live with every day since August 2023 when those charges were quietly dismissed. And YoungBoy brought him on stage. In Atlanta. While performing a diss at OTF. And the crowd went crazy. Think about what that moment meant for Von's mother. For Von's sister Kayla B. For the O'Block community. For Lil Durk sitting in federal detention in Los Angeles awaiting trial for a case that is directly connected to the grief over Von's death. That moment, that specific performance in that specific city with that specific person on that specific stage, was not entertainment. It was a message. And everybody on the receiving end of that message understood it perfectly. And YoungBoy knew they would understand it. That is the point. That is what quietly sending shots actually means in this context. It is not always a diss track. It is not always a social media post. Sometimes it is a booking decision, a guest appearance, a specific choice about who stands beside you on stage in the city most closely associated with the death of your enemy's closest ally. And this particular choice, this specific booking of Lil Tum for the Atlanta stop of the Massa Tour, was as loud as anything YoungBoy has ever put on wax. And then there was the Chicago situation, which added another explosive layer to everything. YoungBoy reportedly tapped in with Southside Chirac gangster disciples, GDs, ahead of his show at the United Center. Chicago PD canceled the show due to fears of beef with O'Block affiliates of Lil Durk's OTF. Let that land. YoungBoy was not just coming to Chicago to perform. He was allegedly making alliances with O-Block's historic ops, the GD sets that have been on the opposite side of the BD versus GD war that claimed lives, that produced the music, that defined the entire landscape of Chicago's South Side for decades. He was reportedly arriving in Vaughn City, with Vaughn's enemies aligned beside him. And Vaughn's sister Kayla saw it. She explained why she couldn't care less about the cancellation. At the end of the day, Mother Kers wanted that show to go on to be funny. Oh, I'm in your city, aha. Look now, aha, you can't even do the show. The satisfaction in that statement is palpable. The quiet pride of watching something not happen that should not have happened. That is where Vaughn's family is. That is the emotional reality of living through what they have lived through and watching YoungBoy try to plant his flag in their city. And the prison fight. YoungBoy allegedly fought an inmate at FCI Talladega Federal Prison in Alabama after the man shouted OTF at him. He was reportedly placed in solitary confinement after dropping the inmate with a two-piece punch before a huge gang fight broke out. Even behind bars. Even locked up. Even in a federal facility where you would think the stakes of maintaining order would outweigh any street politics, YoungBoy apparently cannot hear OTF's name without reacting physically. Cannot let it pass. Cannot choose a moment of prison discipline over the need to respond to the disrespect of somebody shouting out Dirk's crew in his presence. That is not somebody who has moved past this beef. That is not somebody who is approaching this situation with any kind of detachment or perspective. That is somebody for whom this is still very much alive. Very much personal. Very much something that requires a response every single time it comes up, regardless of the consequences. And the question that Vaughn's family is asking, the question that O-Block is asking, is when does it stop? When does YoungBoy decide that the shots have been sent enough? That the messages have been delivered enough? That the people who loved Vaughn have been reminded enough of exactly where he stands on all of this? Because from where Vaughn's mom is sitting, from the perspective of a woman who lost her child and has had to watch the man whose world is connected to that loss continue to celebrate that loss publicly over and over again, enough was enough a long time ago. Because Vaughn's mom, Tasha Bennett, is not a woman who speaks without purpose. Is not somebody who enters public conversations casually or without weighing what her words mean and what impact they are going to have. She is a mother who has been carrying an enormous grief in public for years. Who has watched her son's name be used and misused and celebrated and disrespected and turned into a symbol for every possible agenda, while the actual human being underneath all of that symbolism, the son she raised, the child she loved, gets further and further from view with every new controversy and every new social media moment. And what snapped her is exactly what you would expect to snap a mother in her position. Not an abstract beef. Not a social media post. The Atlanta concert. Lil Tum on that stage. The man who reportedly took her son's life standing in front of thousands of screaming fans being celebrated. Being cheered. Being presented as somebody worthy of a stage appearance at a sold-out arena. While Vaughn's family still does not have legal justice for what happened on November 6, 2020. While the murder charges were dropped. While the case is closed as far as the legal system is concerned. While Tasha Bennett has to wake up every morning knowing that the man who allegedly shot her son is out there, living his life, appearing on stages. And she is not alone in that feeling. The entire O-Block community, the entire network of people who loved Vaughn, who built their identity around the same streets that produced him, is carrying that same specific pain. The pain of a loss that was never properly addressed legally. That was never given the kind of formal accounting that would allow the people who loved Vaughn to feel like some version of justice had been served. And every time YoungBoy makes a move that references that loss, every diss track, every concert choice, every prison fight over an OTF shout-out, it reopens something that never fully closed. And here is what makes this situation so much more complicated than a regular rap beef. Because YoungBoy, to give the complete picture, has at various points tried to suggest that the beef is not as serious as it appears from the outside. Back in 2023, NBA YoungBoy admitted that his beef with Lil Durk is all for entertainment after Gilly the Kid said he wanted the two to squash their feud. The Baton Rouge rap star also revealed that he and Lil Durk talk every 2 or 3 nights about music. Entertainment. He called it entertainment. And on one level, that is an extraordinary statement. The idea that 2 or 3 nights a week these men are talking about music while simultaneously dropping diss tracks about each other's dead. While YoungBoy is bringing Lil Tum on stage in Atlanta. While YoungBoy is getting into prison fights over OTF shoutouts. If all of that is entertainment, then the entertainment has real consequences for real people who did not sign up to be part of the show. Because Von's family did not sign up for any of this. Tasha Bennett did not agree to have her son's death become content. Did not agree to have the man who reportedly killed her child be celebrated at sold-out arena concerts as part of an ongoing entertainment beef between 2 rap superstars. Did not agree to watch her grief be referenced in diss tracks that get millions of streams while she processes an absence that is permanent and devastating and completely real. And the snap, the moment when Von's mom reached her limit, came from the accumulation of all of it. Not just the Atlanta concert. Not just the prison fight. Not just the Chicago GD alliance. All of it together. 5 years of watching YoungBoy's world continue to reference and celebrate and disrespect Von's death, while the legal system offered nothing and the culture moved on to the next controversy. 5 years of watching her son's name show up in diss tracks and concert moments and social media callouts, while the fundamental injustice of what happened to him remained unaddressed. And what she said, what Von's mom put on the record when she finally snapped, was not diplomatic. Was not carefully worded for public consumption. Was not the statement of somebody who was thinking about how it would be received. It was the words of a mother who had absorbed as much as she could absorb and had reached the point where the only thing left was to say exactly what she felt. And what she felt, what she communicated with a clarity that cut through everything, is that YoungBoy needs to stop. Stop referencing Von. Stop celebrating the circumstances of his death. Stop using her son's name as ammunition in a beef that he has publicly called entertainment, while her family is living inside the consequences of something that was anything but entertaining. Interestingly, despite the long-standing issues, there might be a path to peace. Quando Rondo recently converted to Islam, the same faith that Lil Durk and many around him follow. Activist Zul Karnan met with Quando and asked if now that he's Muslim he would consider ending the beef between 4KT and OTF. While his answer wasn't a full commitment to peace, it's a notable shift. Quando Rondo converting to Islam. Reaching a point where the question of peace is at least on the table. Where somebody whose direct involvement in the events of November 2020 is now willing to sit with the idea that this does not have to continue forever. And that development, unexpected, complicated, impossible to fully evaluate from the outside, is the thing that makes this moment so significant. Because if Quando is open to peace, if the man who is at the center of everything is willing to consider a different path, then the question of whether this beef ever ends becomes something other than rhetorical. But peace requires acknowledgement. Requires some form of recognition of what the beef actually cost. And what it cost, at the most fundamental, most human level, is King Von's life. And Tasha Bennett's peace. And O'Block's sense of safety and stability. And all the music that Von was going to make and never got to. And all the milestones he was going to reach and never got to. And all the moments with his children and his family that were taken from him in a parking lot in Atlanta at 26 years old. That is what this beef cost. And until YoungBoy, and everybody around him, fully reckons with that cost rather than treating it as entertainment, rather than bringing the man who reportedly caused that cost onto a stage to be cheered, until that reckoning happens, Von's mom is not going to be quiet. O'Block is not going to be quiet. And Chicago is not going to forget. And that is the complete picture that nobody else assembled for you today. We went from the 2018 origin of this beef. Von calling out YoungBoy's authenticity on Instagram Live, through Quando Rondo's end of story disrespecting Von 2 weeks after his death, through Bring the Hook with O'Block Pack Get Rolled Up, through I Hate YoungBoy with Mad About His Dead Homie, through YoungBoy bringing Lil Tum on stage at State Farm Arena Atlanta, through the Chicago United Center cancellation and the GD Alliance allegations, through the prison fight over an OTF shout-out, through Quando Rondo's Islam, conversion and the first whispers of potential peace, and finally to Von's mom reaching her absolute limit and saying what needed to be said. Drop everything in the comments right now. This community does not do surface level, and this is the kind of conversation that needs to happen in the open. We want your real thoughts, not the diplomatic version, the actual one. If this video gave you something that no other channel assembled for you today, hit that like button immediately. Share this with somebody who thinks this beef is just entertainment because they need to understand what it actually costs the people living inside it. And if you are not subscribed, this is the channel that covers these stories with the depth and the honesty they deserve. Not 30-second reactions. Not surface-level takes. The full story every single time. Hit subscribe. Hit the bell. Do not miss a single upload.